Sandra Booker, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sandra Booker. I am a singer, songwriter, playwright, producer, actress, and activist. I have worked as a professional jazz musician for the past 30 years. I currently write for Women in Jazz Media to spotlight their achievements in education and contributions to performance, women across the world. In 2015, my life was turned upside down when I was sexually assaulted by a colleague and former friend under the guise of giving me guitar lessons. The betrayal of that attack left me in a state of disbelief, and the trauma of that experience sent my life into a tailspin. I reported the assault to the police 3 years later, only to find out that nothing was done to follow up on my accusations, on my allegations. Nothing was done. Nothing. I became the villain instead of the victim. I have been ostracized by contemporaries, colleagues, and even friends who are mutual friends of my abuser. I have been ignored when I called for work opportunities. It has made my life unbearable, and no one should live like that. I have been called toxic, crazy, unprofessional, misguided, uppity, arrogant, and all the other labels that get attached to women who have to stand up and speak up for themselves. I will not tolerate this any longer. We have a duty as human beings, as citizens, as a society, as a community, and as an industry to give each and every person the opportunity to do their work with dignity and pride and grace, humility, and courage. I not only stand here today to call out the person that abused me, who betrayed my trust, who took advantage of my grace, but more so I am here to call out the people who stand in solidarity with predators and give them protection year after year, lifetime after lifetime, career after career. You should not have a 40-year career in abusing other people and receive accolades and awards for it. We can stop this. The choice is ours. So I appeal to Music Cares and this entire industry. Take a stand. Speak up. Stand up. Shout out loud. Every person deserves to live with dignity, and we have earned the right through our commitment, through our sacrifice, through our absolute love of this great thing we call art, to do it, and to do it without shame. Self-respect matters. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for the opportunity to stand here and speak on behalf of these extraordinarily strong women and other women and men, young girls and young boys in this industry who are being exploited as I speak and forced to live in silence, forced to cover those painful moments through alcohol, drugs, and other addictions to hide the pain and the shame of being exploited by those people they trust the most. We can change this. We have the power to choose what is right over what is wrong. Let us choose passion over profit. Let us choose morality over misguidedness. Please stand with me as I stand with my contemporaries, and let us move the industry forward to help those who should never have to tell the unimaginable truth of someone taking advantage of them and destroying their lives and their futures. Enough is enough. Let us make that change, and let us make that change now. I thank you for your time.
Sandra Booker calls them to action. Time's up, and the law now allows her the time to act and to identify that offender and expose others in the industry and require the industry to clean it up and stop the cover up. Alexa, Nikolas.
Hi, my name is Alexa Nikolas. I am a survivor, an actress, activist, and founder of ePredators, and I am a mother of 2. Sorry. It is an honor to be amongst these incredible individuals who speak truth to power. My abuser groomed me from the age of 16 and abused me for over a decade. I have personally witnessed the music industry give my abuser the financial means and power to further abuse me even long after our separation. I have seen the music industry protect him through personal means that are unheard of in business environments. Sadly, with the knowledge of his crimes. Even at one point, intentionally orchestrating means to block me from justice for child sexual abuse through using their power and decades-long expertise to silence me. Facts that I don't want to go into today because of time and immense triggers. I have seen the music industry publicly participate in smear campaigns that have come up about me. The list sadly goes on. This is just a fraction of my story out of many others that are here today. It's time to turn down the music and listen to what countless survivors of this industry have to say. We deserve your direct attention. We deserve your efforts to support our journey towards justice and tangible protection of others. Predators will come and go, but as long as institutions like the music industry enable and participate in the abuse and silencing towards survivors, then it won't matter if one bad apple, as they love to say, gets let go. Mark a survivor's words. The music industry is the Catholic Church on steroids, and I look forward to seeing this culture of rape and abuse be exposed and the day of justice prevail for all, for my children. This is long overdue. Thank you.
Silencing survivors through non-disclosure agreements, gag orders, is violence. Melissa Schuman, please.
Again?
Oh, excuse me.
So it was like, no.
Yeah.
I need it so loud.
No.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'm taking a moment to just pause and honor the courage of these survivors that have stood up and demonstrate today what they intend to do and the journey they're on. And to you and each of you, how grateful we are for this moment and for this chance, both that the law gives all of the survivors and that we now stand with you to share in this moment. and with courageous survivors, some of whom have chosen to remain anonymous and some of whom have chosen not to because the law, as they now have been written in New York and California, and the Adult Survivors Act allows that choice to be made. We're going to share with folks some of the actions that have been taken that foreshadow some of the actions that will be taken, both against the predators, the perpetrators, and the industry. The first complaint I'm going to hold up that has been filed names on the plaintiff as Jane Doe. And it identifies the rapist to be Brian Warner, also known as Marilyn Manson, who first began to rape her as a youth and then continued into her adult years. And she was not the first and certainly not the only, as has been widely reported. And this suit names him and at least two of the industry defendants in it that we believe enabled it to happen. And there are more to come. We also know that as a serial offender, he is also a serial attacker of those that would name and call him out. And he is and has been engaged in serial attacks against many of and or most of those victims that have come forward to name him for what he has done and who he is. The second suit that has now been filed that really is another indictment of the entire industry and the offender named in it. And it is Steven Tyler. And it, in this case, is Julia Misley, formerly known as Julia Holcomb, at the age of 15, was drawn into his world, in which he then began to statutorily rape her and led her to believe, ultimately, that he loved her. And in this lawsuit against Steven Tyler, we detail 5 separate traumas. The statutory rape of her beginning at the age of 15, repeatedly and while on tour, ultimately having her live with him traveling with her in plain sight, with all to know and all to see and all to tolerate what was obvious. She was a child under his control. And when the industry and his allies began to realize that he was bringing her across state lines and continuously statutorily raping her. He and his advisors, he and his industry profiteers decided to protect him under the law. And now, under his control, went to Julia's mother to persuade her that he could take care of her better than her mom, that he would provide her and for her. And he persuaded her mom to turn over, with the help of these lawyers and the industry, a guardianship. And he became her legal guardian. And he brought her into his home, promising to provide for her, as a father would, or as any guardian should. And he used the law and all those surrounding him to protect him as he brought her across state lines and had her living in her apartment. And that is what we call Tyler Trauma 2. Julia believed he would marry her, and she believed this was love, not knowing this was rape. And as this continued to be concealed by all those around her and around him as he traveled the country, he talked to her about wanting to have a baby and did impregnate her. And that is trauma 3. That is trauma 3. And under the guise of romance and the promise of marriage, and as time went on, she needed medical care, but he would not let her have it, because if you tell who the father is, I will be in trouble, he said to her. So she had no medical care. And he continued to be on the road and in a tour and very successful, as is known. And she is living in his Boston apartment. And as time is passing, it becomes evident that her pregnancy without medical care, and she is struggling. And during this time, as a teenager and alone, there's a fire in her apartment. She's on the floor. She puts her head in the chimney to breathe. Blacks out. Next thing that is known is she wakes up in a Catholic hospital. Steven Tyler is there with his manager. And the doctors assure her that you're all right and your baby survived and the baby's all right. Steven Tyler then requires her and coerces her under the threat of leaving her if she doesn't into an involuntary abortion of their child. And they say that you can't have it here because it's a Catholic hospital. So they take her to another place where the procedure is performed. And sometime after that, and she breaks free from the bonds of this man and this industry that has been protecting him for profit, and builds a life and a family. And years later, Trauma 5, Steven Tyler, his publishers, his managers, his agents, and the industry that's profiting from him, publishes his story. And in it, brazenly and openly publishes in his book and his memoir the details of his love affair with a teenager. And that gets covered by the tabloids in 2011, after Julia has rebuilt her life and her family with her adoring husband, and sees in the tabloids the picture of Steven Tyler and her as a teenager, now as told by him. And it calls Steven Tyler teen lover, and then calls her out by name and her picture there. And her son is the first to have seen it. And he says, "Mom, what?" So yes, this is about Steven Tyler, but no, it's about that industry that made the choices to look away and to do three things. To first permit him to continue to traumatize that child, and then to protect him and to go to great lengths to do so, using the law, the lawyers, the agents, and the industry to do so. And then to re-traumatize her again by the publication of his story. And in this suit, we call that involuntary infamy because of what was said about her by him and the way he described her. And so we share this sorrowful story and praise this courageous survivor for standing up against this industry and one predator in it, because it reflects on what needs to be done. And so, I must say that it's time for reckoning. And the problem is industry-wide. And there is a three-headed hydra from Warner to Universal to Sony, and all those in it that are part of this systematic concealment of the perils within all for-profit. So, on behalf of the survivors with whom we stand today and all the survivors and those that need protection in this industry, we demand action. And this is a call. Not just to these suits that we have brought with these survivors, but the ones that are going to be. And we also demand several things. And invite the industry to do the right thing. And it requires folks to start to speak up about this. Number one, at the Music Cares event, which is being held tonight, we will be there. And the survivors will be there. And today, demand number one is that 2 years ago, Steven Tyler received their honorary award at the Music Cares event 2 years ago. We demand they rescind and revoke that award and that honor they gave to him. We demand it. We also demand and implore this industry to stop the practice and prohibit non-disclosure agreements, settlements that silence survivors, that keep them from identifying the perils and the predators among them, and develop policies and practices across the board that do not permit it. We demand, and the survivors demand, that this industry develop rigorous practices that not only require training but require reporting of suspicions of sexual assault and violence against women and children and men. They have it in sporting industries, in football, in baseball, and across the board, and there's nothing like it in this industry. We demand that there be a cleansing, and we demand that they develop protocols and practices that require protection of the vulnerable and not for the profit of the prosperous. And so we stand with these survivors with a sense of urgency and fear, courage and hope, and deep gratitude. And also demand that for every non-disclosure agreement that this industry routinely engages in, that they release the victims and the survivors from the obligations they imposed on them and the oppressive tactics that those strategies employ. We also demand and implore the industry to not permit retaliation against a survivor who chooses to publicly name his or her violator, because this industry has deployed an industry that is on the attack of survivors. It's time for reckoning. It's time for cleansing. It's time for a cleanup of the cover-up. And to all the survivors with whom we stand today, we are so grateful to each of you and all the survivors that are out there yet to be and have the chance to speak your truth. The time is now in California, in New York, under the Adult Survivors Act, to speak your truth, to expose the perils and be a part of the cleanup. And we invite this industry to join these courageous survivors. And instead of cowardly pursuing profit and personal gain, let's together work together to pursue and honor the survivors that have spoken the truth and have dared to care in a way so many in this industry have chosen not to. And to each of you, we speak in deep gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.